So good morning. This morning you received one of the two handouts that I was trying to give you. The other handout is stuck in the printer somewhere. So maybe a little later you'll get it, maybe not. But that is the way the morning is going. So we do have everything that we're doing online though. So if you look, you got the Assignment 106 handout, which is what you're going to be working on. It's actually your last regular assignment, and then we have the final portfolio. So this is it in terms of the end. You notice that it's due on the last regular day of class, which is Wednesday, the 7th of December. Yes, we are that close to the end of class. Okay, don't panic quite yet. Your portfolio is due on the following Monday. Okay, so just in terms of that, how that stuff kind of plays out. So don't forget about your portfolio. You'll see at the bottom of your exercise handout, if you get it, that there's a reminder that it's due on December 12th. So for your exercise 106, or for your assignment 106, we're going to model in 3D the same building that you designed in assignment 105. Many of you will discover that you don't really like your building anymore and you want to change it. That's okay. I don't mind if you change it. You can evolve. It's not a problem. But you can also model the exact same building. It's really up to you. You'll also probably discover that things that you thought looked right when you drew the elevations, for example, aren't quite right. But I want to walk you through kind of how to work in the world of SketchUp, build a 3D model, build a good 3D model, and then how do we get output. And so you'll see under Part 2, Export and Collage, that's where we really get into what we're creating. And this is about the production of graphics for a final presentation. And so you'll do the modeling in SketchUp. We're going to start that modeling today. And then we'll concentrate, and I'll walk you through on subsequent class days each of these things, which is creating an elevation view and collaging an elevation view. So when I talk about collaging, I mean adding background, adding wood texture, adding people, all those kinds of things. So we'll do that to an elevation. We'll do that to a plan. We'll do that to a section. We're going to cut through the building and do it to a section. And we'll also do it to a perspective drawing. Okay? So we'll do all four of those. As part of your assignment, you will pick your three best of those four and turn the three best in for assignment 106. Does that make sense? And you can choose which one. So if your plan didn't really turn out and you don't like it, you can cut that one out and just give me the elevation, the section, and the perspective, for example. Okay? So I try to build in a little flexibility for that. Like I said, you're going to do 3 of the 4 above, and you're going to turn them in on Wednesday, the 7th of December. Okay? So today, in your exercise 125, I pulled it up because you don't have it sitting in front of you. You may want to pull it up as well. Though there's not that many steps for what we're going to be working on. It's the same site, same program, everything that we've done before in Assignment 105. This time we're just building it in SketchUp 3D Model. The purpose of today is to show you how to take your AutoCAD drawing, bring it into SketchUp, and work with it once it's in SketchUp. And so I'll walk through some strategies for how that works. And you're basically going to be modeling all day today, trying to create this building. Okay? The more detail you add, the better your drawings are going to be long term. So try to not only build the basics, but to add things like windows and doors and all that sort of stuff. Okay? Today, at the end, you're going to export 2 2D graphic files. One is of the interior, one is of the exterior. Pick your views, and that's however far it is. If you're missing pieces, no big deal. I just want some record, interior and exterior, of what you've worked on today. Okay? Part 3 is a reminder. Your portfolio is due on December 12th, right? You should be working on that. My guess is all of you have completely forgotten about it. Okay? But hint, hint, we're in mid-November. It's time to start working on it. If you wait until the last minute, it won't turn out well. Okay? So start thinking about it, start working on it. We will actually have a class day coming up very soon where all we do is work on the portfolios again. Okay? So it's something that is going to keep coming back. And we want to make sure, remember, it's worth 30% of your overall grade. Okay, so if you do well on it, you will do well in the class. If you don't do well on it, you won't do well in the class. Okay, so it's important. All right, so let's move into the world of SketchUp and AutoCAD and how they combine together. So I went ahead and I pulled up my exercise 122 drawing, which is the one where I did the layout with my 4 elevation views. If I switch back into model space, we see that, yes, I have my floor plan and I have my elevations all set up here. Okay? So this is the view that this is the file that I want to work with. And so I've gone ahead and opened it just to confirm that it's right. And I can do a few things. I could, in AutoCAD, clean things up a bit. So I could delete the extra objects like the table and some of the things that don't matter or aren't going to help my SketchUp model. They're just going to clutter it. Or I can leave them in and delete them in SketchUp. It really doesn't make any difference. It just depends on where you're more comfortable. So I'll go ahead and leave them in, and then I'll clean them up in SketchUp so I can show you that process as well. So I'm going to do a save as today, and I'm going to put this into today's folder, which is 125. Create a new fall 2016 folder. And we'll call this exercise 125. And I'll go ahead and save it. Okay. Now that it's saved, I'm going to open up SketchUp. And I'm going to choose under Template the architectural design in feet and inches. And then I'll click Start using SketchUp. And so this brings up the generic SketchUp interface that we've seen before. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the lady here. I don't need her. And then I'm going to bring in my AutoCAD file. So I'll go to File, and then I'll go to Import. And I'm going to pick that file that I just saved. So here it is right there. Now, automatically you come down here, just import it. Okay? The problem is we have to make sure the units match up. Otherwise, it'll be too big or too small. So before I click Import, I'm going to go to Options. And when I have Options open, I need to make sure that my scale units are in inches. Okay? Frequently, this is set to feet. If it's set to feet, your building will be 12 times larger than it really is. Okay? So we make sure that it's set for inches. Okay? The rest of these options are fine by default. And I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And then I'll click Import. And it'll run through its little import process here. And there we go. It gives us a little import results here. We can go ahead and close that. And we can zoom out and see our whole drawing. Okay, so this is the same drawing that I created in AutoCAD. It's come in as lines. Okay. Unfortunately, it doesn't automatically fill in all of the walls and floors with surfaces when we bring it in as AutoCAD. So we have to do some work to get it ready to work with. Okay? So what I want to do is I want to open up my Layers window, which is over here on the right. If it's not listed under your tray, it would be listed under, I think it's under Window. It would be listed under here. There it is. So Window, Default Tray. My Layers is already checked, but if yours wasn't, you could choose to check it again. And now I can look at the individual layers. So for example, the topography here, I can turn on or turn off. Okay? So what I'll do is I'll start by turning everything off. And this way I can work my way through the whole drawing and slowly choose to turn things on or turn it off. So layer 0 has this chair on it, or this little table and chair right there. I don't even want that. So we'll go ahead and select it, delete it, and we'll leave layer 0 there. Let me turn on the topography. Okay? So here's my topography. It's probably more than I really need, but I'll leave it intact. But I don't want any of the objects that I draw to be attached to the topography. You remember how Google likes to attach and glue things together, so when you move them, it stretches, etc. So as I have the topography shown here, I'll go ahead and select all the topography, and I have two choices. I can make it a group, or I can make it a component. Right? Either one is fine for right now. So I'll go ahead and I'll right-click, and I'll go to Make Group. And that makes a group out of this topography. Remember when we worked with those cubes, when we made it a group, it didn't join to other pieces. So we'll go ahead and turn off the topography now. Let's go ahead and turn on this next layer. Okay, it doesn't look like anything's on it, so let's right-click on the layer. Oh, excuse me. With it selected, let's click the little minus sign, and we'll get rid of that one. And we'll delete the contents that are on the layer. Move on to the next one. Nothing critical here. Let's delete it. All right, walls. All right, so walls is pretty important. Shows all the base walls for my building. This is probably the most important piece that I'm going to be working with. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select it, and I'm going to right-click. And again, I could make it a group, or I can make it a component. I'm going to go ahead and make it a component this time. Component allows you to edit in kind of an isolated environment. So you can get, instead of just being a group where you can click on it and then explode it, this one you can actually go inside it and make edits later on. So I'm going to select to make a component out of it instead, and we'll call this floor plan. And I'll go ahead and click on Create. And maybe it'll do it for me. The line weights go away when you bring it in. So the question was about the line weights that you'd specified. So if you specified a bunch of line weights in your drawing, as soon as you bring them into SketchUp, you lose all the line weights. It's not about line weights anymore. OK, so it's been made a component. On the surface, it's essentially the same thing as a group. The difference is that we can go in and edit the component afterward. So let's turn off the walls. Let's turn on the kitchen. Okay, this was a little information about the kitchen. I don't really need that, so I'll go ahead and subtract that off. Delete the contents. The flooring. Okay, it doesn't look like anything showed up because it was a hatch, and hatches don't come in when we do it, so we'll go ahead and get rid of that. The text layer here, I don't think we care about. We'll get rid of that. So you guys get the idea. I'm going through layer by layer and removing things. So the furnishings, this was the interior of the bathroom. Again, not so critical. We'll get rid of that as well. The roof, looks like I had a few lines for the roof. Not really worried about that. We'll go ahead and get rid of that as well. The windows, right? I chose to concentrate on the walls, not the windows. I could have turned these on and made them part of the group, or excuse me, part of the component. But again, these aren't that critical. I'm going to insert them after the fact. So we know where the openings are. That's the important part. All right, so I'll go ahead and get rid of the windows as well. I have no idea what's on layer 1, but it's not important, so let's get rid of it. Guides. Again, we don't really care about the guides, so we can get rid of those as well. All right, so then we get to the elevations. So on the elevations, I have 4 different elevations. So I'm going to take each one and make each one a component. So I'll right-click and say Make Component, and this is going to be the south elevation. And I'll create. I'll make component, and this would be the west elevation. No, excuse me, east. This would be the north. And this would be the west. And we'll go ahead. Okay, a few extra little pieces here that I don't need. We'll get rid of those. Let's go ahead and turn on the doors. Don't need the doors, so let's get rid of that layer. The no print layer we can get rid of. I don't think anything even came in on that. And the viewport layer we can get rid of as well. So I really worked through and I got rid of a lot of the superfluous stuff before I started working in SketchUp. So now let's go ahead and turn on my walls. I'm going to leave the topography off for right now, but I'm going to turn on the elevation. So I have the walls and the elevations both on. I'm going to create a brand new layer, and I'm going to call this 3D model. And I'm going to make it the current layer by clicking the little button next to 3D model so that it's black. Okay? So now whatever I draw is going to end up being on this particular layer. Let's change the color so it's not awful. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now that I've done this, I need to start making this into a live drawing that I can start to work with. And we have a couple different options for how we create the floor plan itself. Okay? And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm going to show you this in the hope that it works, but I'll also show you when it doesn't work, because chances are it's not going to work for me. Okay, so if I went to draw a rectangle around my object, right, let's start here. I'll come over, come on. Oh, come on. All right, we'll just make it a little bit bigger. This is then one single face. Okay? If, though, I take my component and I right-click and I click on Explode, it may or may not break into individual pieces. And this is where I was saying sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So in this case, it kind of did. It gave me some of the floor, but not all of the floor. So instead of doing that method, which would seem the logical thing, I'm going to back up. And now I'm going to go ahead and draw, using the little pencil tool, around my building. Right? Oops. And I can use this component as a guide to do this. So we'll work my way around the outside. And once I've traced around the outside, I have a surface that is my whole building. Now I need to divide up that surface into the individual little walls. Right? So for example, I can look down on this piece, and I could use my pencil here, and I could draw there to there. Oops. Back up to there. And now this piece is separate from the rest of the surface. So I'm breaking off pieces of my particular surface. Okay, so I could do the same thing here. And we could continue right from there with this wall. Bear with me. All right, so now that piece, oh, I must have missed something, should be separate just like this. So you're going to work your way through and trace different pieces of the building. Okay? Then it's this matter of just using the push-pull tool and giving your walls height. So for example, I can come over this, and I can pull that wall up. Now in this context, I don't really know what my wall height should be. So I'm going to show you another trick for how we can relate all of these together. Let me back up for a second. And let me take this here. Remember, that's my component. And I want to rotate this so that it's no longer flat, so that it's pulled up in the 3D view. This is a little challenging in the world of SketchUp. When we click on the rotate tool, which is right here, it really needs a face to try to rotate from. So what I'll do instead is I'll start by drawing a little cube right here below. We'll just do it below my door like that. I'll use push-pull to pull this up and give it a little height. And now that I have that, I can then rotate. Notice, though, that I made my, sorry. All right. I made my box so that one face lines up with the floor level. Now, I can select my component, and I can use this box to adjust which direction I'm rotating. So there I am in this direction, and I want it to go like that. So now that's standing up. But I specified that the floor level, right, is the ground level. It's kind of hard to see. Let me show you in one of my other views. So let me go to Camera, Standard Views. Let me look at the front view for a second, and let me turn it to parallel projection. So see how, as I'm looking at that elevation, my floor level right there is at the ground. So I rotated the building down, right? That's so that everything lines up. Let me do that again. Let me go to Camera, Standard Views. Oops, let's go back to ISO, and let's turn on my perspective. There we go. So let's do it again for this view, and we'll do it for each of the subsequent views. So right here, we need to rotate, but I need that box again. So let me go ahead and build a quick little box. Let me take this, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate it. There we go. And we'll rotate it that way. And we'll do it one more time with this one. Push, pull. Rotate. And there we are. So as I said before, I can use this to my advantage. So when I need to know how tall a particular wall would be, right, I can reference what's happening on one of these sides. So let's take this piece, and I'm once again going to do the push-pull tool. And as I start to pull it up, I can come over and I can reference the height over there in that corner. So I know that that wall is now the right height because it's referencing my building here. If I were to do, say, this wall, it would be that high as well. So let's divide that up really quick. So there's that piece. And since we're here, let me do this piece as well. There we go. All right, so I can take this piece, push, pull, same thing, and we want it to match up with that corner there. So you guys see how I'm using that as a reference? Okay. I'll do the same thing with this piece, though now I have some walls already established. So there. This wall over here would line up to that piece. So if I went ahead and drew this piece in, and what I did there is I drew a rectangle, and I'll draw another rectangle right there that includes that little piece, like that. Then I went in and I deleted that line so that that was all one surface. And then I can use push-pull, and that lines up to there because it's a little bit taller. So you see how I'm starting to build out those pieces up? Okay. This little column here, if I drew that, there it is. Let me use push-pull, and it's not going to be as tall because it's only going to be that tall. Okay? And it doesn't matter whether I'm using this front elevation here or the back elevation, assuming that I did all the elevations correct, they're all the same height once I do it. Okay? So it's a matter of putting things together. Remember, because we're drawing on the 3D model layer, I can choose to turn off the walls, and you can see what the floor plate looks like without my little divisions. Okay? So we could go through and continue. I could draw more walls, and we could continue extruding. Right? At a certain point, let me turn back on the walls here. Let me go ahead and draw this in. So there's that. Let me use push-pull, and I'll make it the same height as that wall. So there we are with those two walls. I need to draw the piece that connects these two, the roof. And so I can go ahead and just use the pencil tool, and I could draw the front face here. Like that. Because I don't have, right, I don't have the whole back, you can see there it is. Let me just come straight across with this for right now. There. Remember, I can get rid of that line, and that becomes one surface. And then I can use the push-pull on this to drop it down to whatever the height of the ceiling is, which is about like that. I think it shows in this view right there. So you guys see how I work with my various elevations as I start to build this thing up. Okay? So I'm going to encourage you to get started and to kind of work through your drawing. I wanted to at least show you the relationship of these as I start to build it together. It is better to keep your walls and or your elevations on a separate layer so you can turn them on, turn them off, and then build this up just using those as a guide. Right? Does that kind of make sense? Okay. So the bulk of what you're going to be working on today, and again, I'll try to see if I can't get the handout to print, is to work on this. You'll create two views, an interior view and an exterior view. Once you have those views established, you can post them on the course website by the end of class today. Does that make sense? Yeah? Do spend your time working on this. Obviously, this goes directly into assignment 106. The more detail you have, the better off you're going to be when we start doing elevations, plans, sections, and the perspective drawing at the end. Right? So lots of detail is important. You do not, in this, have to assign materials. Some of you that have worked in SketchUp before have played around with materials. Sometimes it's useful to assign glass, just so that it's a little bit transparent. Beyond glass, it's really not worthwhile, because we're going to end up doing materials and stuff in Photoshop afterward. Okay, so just keep it as plain gray, but if you want to put glass in, there's nothing wrong with that, so you can see the transparency. Okay, if I wanted to put glass in, right, let's say that I had a window. And I push, pull, something like that. All right, so this piece here, let's do an offset on it first. Let's say 2 inches, right? And I want that to be glass, for example. Actually, let's push it in a bit, 2 inches. All right, so let's say I want that particular piece to be glass. I can come over to my materials here, and under materials, we should see transparent, unless they renamed it something else. Nope, it's called glass and mirrors. And we can apply translucent glass. There's the translucent glass blue. And I can apply it to that, which will mean that I can kind of see through it as I'm modeling. Notice, though, it's seeing through to the surface on the back side because I didn't make the surface on the back side. So I need to make the window on the back side as well. So let's go ahead and divide this. Like that. I'll use offset again. 2 inches. I'll use push-pull, right? And we can figure out where those join up, something like that. And I can then apply that to that. And now you can see that that's a piece of glass. Okay, so I can see through it. It's important, right, for the glass, but none of the rest of the materials. Obviously, they have lots and lots of things. You know, asphalt and concrete. And you could apply concrete to this wall, right, in the same way, there, etc. it never looks particularly good, which is why we're going to ultimately be doing Photoshop collage afterward. So you can put the glass in, no other materials. Okay? Trying to think if there's anything else. You're more than welcome to use components should you want to. So if you look at components here, right, you can look online at the 3D warehouse for specific components. Let's say you wanted, I don't know, a chair. We should be able to search for it. There we go. Right, bunch of chairs that people have made. You can download these directly into your, okay, so there's a chair. I can download it, load directly into the model, yes. And there's the chair, and I can put it in. Okay, so you're more than welcome to use those as pieces of your building. I'm far less concerned with what these look like and far more concerned with what your building looks like. Does that make sense? Right, building's more important. That's why I say it's okay to use the components and to put them in. All right, any questions? No? Yes, you can look up doors in here, and there's probably a variety of doors that you can use. Spend some time and really look at the doors, because some of them may or may not be a good look for your particular building. Right? So here we can do, or sometimes actual manufacturers will post their particular doors. So as you go through, take a look. Looks like there's some kitchen stuff, etc. You're more than welcome to use any of this, right? You still have to build a building, though, right? So build the building, and then you can use the rest of this, and that can actually be beneficial long term. So here's some kind of a barn door look. There's a bunch of different pieces, and you should be able to drop these into your building as well. Again, I haven't actually done this, so I have no idea if it will work. We're going to hope that it does. Okay, so there's a door, and I can drop it into my building, I hope. Like that. Okay, obviously I have to clean it up so that you can see it. Sometimes you might have to adjust where it falls as to how it cuts through the door or cuts through the wall. Okay, so the point is it's not really showing up. I have to do a little editing, but you can use those should you want to. Okay, and I think this about covers everything that you need for today to get started. Okay, if you run into any individual questions, by all means let me know, and we'll work through whatever those are. If you have a building with lots of curves, good luck. Take 136. Hint, hint. Right? No. SketchUp's not particularly great with curves. There are ways of doing curves, but it's a little bit chunky. Rhino's far better for that. So, see, I just have to kind of plug my own class. It's only fair, right? You guys are all going to take it anyway. So, all right. I'll stop talking, start modeling.